This media is brought to you by Polyscope.
In the realm of tomorrow, where techniques mind, we ponder, we dream.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to ThinkFuture. My name is Chris Kalaboukis, and once again, we're coming at you live from deep in the heart of Silicon Valley, California. We're talking technology, philosophy, the future, not necessarily those, and not necessarily in that order. If you're watching on YouTube, smack that subscribe button and hit that bell so you'll be notified when a new show comes on. I forget if it's over here or it's over here. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast service, please subscribe and please drop a note on Apple Podcasts. I greatly appreciate it. Now, in our sister publication, AIdaily.us, which I've talked about before, we cover breaking news in AI, interesting news in AI, stuff I think is interesting, and then there's a little team of AI busybodies that turns it into a podcast, a video, and a newsletter. It talks a little bit about AI poetry. And AI poetry, I thought was interesting. So I've actually created AI poetry a long time ago. Man, back in the 80s, I programmed my Commodore 64 to spit out AI poetry. And I've got some of it. It is not good. I could read it to you, but you'd probably go, Chris, what are you doing reading AI poetry to me? That's terrible. It's not really AI poetry. It's more computer poetry. Took some phrases, threw them all together, made them rhyme, whatever. It's not very good. Not very good. But today, we have AI. We have LLMs. We have super powerful models that are generating poetry, or you can ask to generate poetry. And there was a recent competition where somebody submitted some AI poetry, and the AI poetry won. And as a matter of fact, people thought the AI poetry was better than the human poetry. Now, some poets might go, what are you talking about? That's terrible. AI poetry cannot do anything. It can never be as creative as human poetry. Humans are the only ones who can generate poetry. I mean, maybe we haven't come across other species yet. Maybe there are species that generate poetry. Who knows? We don't know that. But let's say that there's this AI poetry that's out there that's been generated by an LLM, and it's creating poetry that people actually like better than humans creating poetry. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, my first thought was, yes, I can absolutely totally see it. And you know why I can absolutely totally see it? Because I understand what AI is, what generative AI is. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Generative AI is not a machine. It's H2M, like H2O. H2M, human, machine. It's two elements of human and one element of machine. And you'd probably say, what do you mean two elements of human and two elements of machine? Well, think about what a large language model is. And a large language model is the database that powers generative AI. It is a database of words and phrases that have been generated based on human output. So what humans have created has been fed into this large language model. So when you're seeing AI-generated poetry, the words and the phrases that are coming out of the AI-generated poetry are words and phrases that have already been uttered by humans. They've already been created by humans. We just don't know exactly which human said them. In some cases we do. But these words and phrases that are in the large language model have been created by humans, other human beings, and maybe even you. Maybe some of the things that you have personally said have ended up in a large language model. You don't know that. But it's entirely possible that your personal poetry that you've written is in a large language model somewhere, because it could have been scraped into this model. So there's this large language model of words and phrases that human beings have written. And then there's a machine, and then there's you. You are the one who gives the AI a seed, a prompt, and drives it towards the large language model, you ask the large language model, write a poem about a poppy flower, or something to that effect. You provide a seed. So when I said H2M, there's the 1H, which is the large language model full of human-generated content. There's the second H, which is you putting a prompt into the AI. And then there's a machine, which takes what you've said and what's in the large language model and combines it in such a way that it feels that it's something that you would want to read. And then what happens is that it spits something out, and you think to yourself, this is good or this is bad. And then you say, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again, until it spits something out that you find good. And the interesting thing about the AI is that because it isn't human, it's able to create juxtapositions that maybe human beings have not been able to do or didn't see in what they were trying to build. So AI can create poetry that has never been, that will never or may never be created by any human being, because it can see patterns and juxtapositions that us as human beings cannot see. In some ways, it is an alien mind. It is a completely alien mind to us. And in some ways, and sometimes, it can create poetry. It can create imagery. It can create music. It can create things that human beings could never have even thought of, could never have made those connections. And in that way, I think AI, in many ways, can be way more creative than human beings can. But you have to remember that the raw materials of this creation are human. So when you read that AI poetry is better than human poetry, then think to yourself, most of that AI poetry is actually humans, humans contributing to that AI poetry. So is it really AI poetry? It's H2M poetry. It's poetry that's being created by AI and humans. And the largest part of it is human. So AI poetry is really another way to look at human poetry. And is that so bad? That's it for me for today. See you next time, and until then, don't forget to think future.
Pixels and philosophies merge and mold, a future untold, unseen.